Hi, welcome to See You Live. My name is Walker Evans. I'm the co-founder of ColumbusUnderground.com. Joining me today is Josh Lapp. He is the board chair of Transit Columbus. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So wanted to talk with you a little bit today about development trends. We've talked a lot about transit and transportation in the past. These things are very intertwined. There's something called transit-oriented development. Columbus has seen a lot of new things happening over the past 20 years at this point. A lot of new development downtown. Some of our urban neighborhoods have rapidly transformed. What sort of things have you noticed or seen in the past year or so, or coming up this year, that you would kind of identify as a development trend?
Oh man, wow. I think anybody in Columbus that lives here or watches what's happening can see that things are changing pretty rapidly. And I think for me, the biggest trend or thing to look at of the last year is really the movement of development outside of just, more or less just the short north and into a lot of other neighborhoods. And we're seeing a lot of things happen that I think urbanists like me have been wanting to see for years. Potential development projects take place. And I think having these things happen outside of just our one, favored neighborhood is a really exciting thing.
Yeah. Do you think that's because there's just a lack of room? A lot of the lots have been filled in, or like the low density, single-story buildings have been replaced by taller things, or is it a capacity issue? They can't add more people there and need to.
Yeah, I think
it's a mix of both.
I think it's a mix of both, and I think there's some other components in there as well. I mean, I think if you're just looking at, obviously we hear lots of comments all over the place about how the short north has changed. And I think, as an individual retailer might not be necessarily looking or have easy access to open a business in the short north anymore. And I think that's okay, because that's driven people all over downtown and into Franklinton and Old Town East and all these other neighborhoods. So I think that's part of it, just in terms of the actual physical density and development. Of course, I mean, there's not that much land left. I mean, there's still a few projects, but certainly High Street is more or less built out. So if I'm a developer and I'm looking to do a project, I'm going to have to look elsewhere because where am I going to do it? But I think the growth and the higher values, which in some ways are a negative, have also allowed for development to really catch its stride outside of just that neighborhood, because we're now seeing it financially work for developers to do projects in Old Town East and Franklinton and all these places. One of the things that I was just talking about this the other day, because who in Columbus is not talking about development? But I was on the Italian Village Commission for several years and lived in the neighborhood and really followed the growth there. And you see single family homes being built, all over the neighborhood for the past 10 years. I mean, even longer.
Some of those individual lots kind of in between where a house probably once stood and was either demolished or burned down or something. Yeah. That's where you're seeing the smaller ones.
Exactly. You see that happen.
Not quite as attention getting as like the big buildings going up on the larger through streets. But
there's hardly any lots left to even do that in Italian Village. Right. So what has surprised me, and being an Old Town East resident, and I know you kind of live in the area too, whatever we're calling the neighborhoods these days.
King Lincoln, Near East Side.
Yeah. So Near East Side for sure.
Bronzeville.
Yeah, as you go around the neighborhood, I get surprised because I see, that lot filled in. Like, whoa, that's weird. I'm surprised that happened, just because you were not seeing any new. I worked for Homeport, and you would only see Homeport building new builds on the east side, and now they're just going up everywhere. There was, of course, the $1 million one that is going around right now that was built near the freeway. So lots of things are happening, and it's not just the big developments, and it's not just confined to one area. I mean, there's things happening all over the urban neighborhoods, and that's not even to get into the suburbs.
Yeah, well, I was about to say that there's definitely been a trend where, kind of at the beginning of the 2000s, largely under the Coleman administration, there was a large push to revitalize downtown and incentivize, new condo and apartment development, and that kind of took off in 2002, 2003, and there was a pretty good run up, and then the national recession hit.
Yeah.
And I don't think the story is unique to Columbus. Every city was kind of going through this. So the bubble kind of burst a little bit. I don't think there were too many projects that were completely stalled out, but not much got built between 2009, 2012, and then as the recovery happened, Columbus seemed to recover a lot faster than other cities, and it's just been a rocket ship ever since. So I think it dispelled some of those rumors that urban development and urban living was like a little microcosm or a little trend. And now, of course, we're seeing suburban communities kind of following suit. Dublin specifically, with their sort of master plan, said, you know, we need to densify and have this type of housing option for people that want it, or else, you know, both the boomers and the millennials are going to flee, you know, to the urban market. And so, of course, they work with private developer Crawford Hoying to build up Bridge Park, and that's just exploded in popularity, and it's getting a lot of attention. Do you think we'll see other things like that in other areas?
Oh, absolutely. Or is that... Yeah, I think that you already are. I mean, Dublin, I think, has certainly done it at the largest scale, but even like Gahanna with Creekside, and that probably would have been a much more financially successful project had it been done in 2012 instead of 2009 or 2008.
Yeah.
But even Grove City with Beulah Park, not as urban, but still kind of that infill new urbanist style development. I think all at Hilliard, all of the suburbs are more or less trying to revitalize their downtown or create one. And I think and Upper Arlington is another great example of like Lane Avenue and the growth that's happening there. So I think it's certainly a trend, and like you said, the suburbs want to capitalize off creating various housing options, because as the population ages in those communities, if they don't have somewhere to go, they're not necessarily going to live in a 4,000 square foot house or something like that. So, and I forgot to mention the one place, and we talked about downtown, but I do want to call out the idea of the Discovery District, because to me that is like totally taking off. I mean, it's crazy, and it's kind of under the radar compared to other areas. Like, you don't really hear people talking about the huge Borer project going up on State Street or the Pizzuti projects that are happening over by the library. But that is
stuff
really
down on Main Street as well.
Yeah,
right on the edge.
I walk by it every day from my house to work. So I think that's going to totally transform the way we think about downtown too, or even like downtown is so geographically large. It's much larger than other similar downtowns in geography. So we're really going to have several neighborhoods just in the downtown core.
Yeah.
And we already do, but like we're seeing that. I loved that South 4th Street was like on the list of the most happening places, not just because my office is there, but also, it's just there's these hubs.
It's become a destination. Yeah. One of the other trends that we have started to see a little bit of, and I think there's more on the way, 2020 and beyond, is smaller living. So not only kind of the micro living units that are, multifunctional space, but also co-living, which is a concept that Gravity 2.0 is bringing to town, but it's something that's existed in other cities, where you have a room, but a lot of your amenity spaces like hangout areas and dens and laundry rooms and community kitchens and stuff like that are in separate parts of the building. So it's not quite dorm life, but it's maybe like a half step removed. Do you think that'll gain traction here? Is that something the next generation is going to really kind of take the reins with, or what do you think of some of those trends?
It's funny because I think a lot of these things are driven by economics, and having quality housing that is affordable, and that's a way to do it, especially for young people that are willing to live probably not that much differently than they already were living, or what's the difference between living in a 10-person house on campus and co-living at Gravity 2? Probably much more improved in that situation.
Probably fewer beer cups on the lawn.
Exactly. But I think it will take off. I think the whole generational adversarialness of the last year has been kind of funny, but I think that in reality, the millennials, which I guess I'm one, we're old now, but the people behind us or whatever, they are certainly making economic decisions. I mean, so are millennials. So yeah, people are going to be driven towards that because everything's becoming more expensive, and a variety of economic reasons. But yeah, so I think that we'll see that. It's not if there are 5 buildings in Columbus that do it, that's still not that many people. True, but it is definitely a growth in that market. You know, so.
Well, yeah, and the thing you're talking about generations, demographics, the millennials kind of end with the year 2000. So kids born after 2000 are the Generation Z, kind of the next generation. And so if you're born in 2000, 2001, you're already in college. That's right. That's like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old today. So you know, these places might not even necessarily be built for millennials.
Oh no! I mean, God, it's the whole generation thing to me is a little passé because it's putting everybody into these boxes. And how many, you know, when I lived in several downtown buildings, various ones, and the demographic diversity of the people in these buildings is so much different than it's reported.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of older people that had, you know, downsized. I remember some of my favorite people to talk to when I lived at the Julian was a couple that had left a 3,000 square foot house in Reynoldsburg, I think, and were in a studio apartment.
Yeah.
And you know, the biggest problem for them was like figuring out what to do with all their Christmas stuff. But you know, it's
rent a storage unit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's there are such a variety of people. It's certainly, you know, not just a youthful craze. It's also, I think, driven a lot, like the urban experiences, by people that are older and want to be in a more comfortable, walkable place. And to me, that I hope will be the next development trend, is an explosion of these walkable neighborhoods, you know, all around the city. And well, that goes back to transit, which we have talked about in other segments. But certainly, I think those two things they're tied together, and hopefully walkability helps grow. And I think that's why some of these neighborhoods that we've been talking about are taking off. Like the Discovery District, extremely walkable to all the things that you need. You know, Franklinton, with all the new development, is becoming more walkable. I live in Old Town East. I try to walk as much as possible and take transit. So hopefully that's a growing segment. But we don't have that many neighborhoods that way, so that's why I think prices have been going up in many of them.
Cool. Well, lots to keep tabs on in 2020 and beyond. So thanks for stopping by, Josh.
Absolutely. Thank you.